Hey guys, and in front of the camera here I have the new Spyderco Delica 4 that was released in 2017, which is the Wharncliffe version of the Delica 4. So, looking at it compared to a normal Delica 4 with the kind of drop point style blade, they're very similar except the blade shape. I think that the handles are actually identical. I haven't really been able to see any difference in the handle or handle length or anything. So it looks very similar. So I think the really only difference is the blade profile. So you get that Wharncliffe blade. And this is a true Wharncliffe blade because it's fully flat on the edge. So like a modified would have maybe a little bit of belly in it, but a traditional Wharncliffe blade is completely flat. So it's really neat. And when you look at a Wharncliffe blade upside down, well, it's kind of like a drop point. So normally in the drop point you had the cutting edge here, and this would be unsharpened. But instead of Wharncliffe, it's like they sharpened the top of a drop point and left the curve where the cutting edge would normally be, and they left that where it's unsharpened. So it's kind of like you take a drop point blade and you turn it over, and that's a Wharncliffe. It's a very old blade profile. A lot of traditional knives actually have Wharncliffe blades, and so it's kind of neat to see one of these modern knives put in a Wharncliffe blade, because a lot of these modern knives tend to have drop points and whatnot. So this is pretty neat, and it changes kind of the uses of this, because when you normally had a typical Delica, you had belly there, so you could take this and you could cut on a flat surface because you had that belly, so you could roll. Now the Wharncliffe, and you shouldn't do it, it's not going to work for cutting on a flat surface because you don't have that belly, and you also probably will mess up the really delicate tip on the Wharncliffe. So this still works good for EDC tests, especially getting into packages when you had that tip. You can kind of go along the tape to open up the package, or breaking down cardboard, cutting away from you, or even if you can do it reverse grip. This isn't the best reverse grip with this handle, but Wharncliffes also work very well for that. It has a little bit of jimping, the run of jimping here, very similar to the jimping on the original Delica 4. So you have that ramp of jimping. And just like the normal Delica 4, you have this little spot down here that's not really a choil, but you can kind of choke up on the blade, and you still won't be in the path. So there's no jimping or anything, but you can still kind of choke up on that to do some more detailed work, or you can just put your finger back there, put your thumb up there, so it still works pretty well. Typical Delica construction. You have the FRN handles with the Spyderco, I forgot what they call it, volcano grip maybe? Same texture. I think it still says Delica 4, yeah, it still says Delica 4 here on the handles. So the handles, yeah, they're basically identical. Lock back. It's not the easiest to flick these Delicas open. It's a little bit easier to flick open in a Dora, basically the larger version of this. Like most Delicas, 4-position pocket clip, same pocket clip that you're used to, with the little hole in the middle, so when you put a tip up you can still put a lanyard through the lanyard hole. Not the deepest carry, but there are some aftermarket clips for Delicas. So, same ergonomics of a Delica, which are decent. They're not as good as some other Spydercos that have both. You have jimping on the top and the bottom, something like Domino. But the Delica is a very good knife for a budget. Well, not budget, but affordable knife for EDC. And if you want to pair it with the larger Endura, then you have a small EDC knife, and also a large, you could call it self-defense knife with the Endura. I'm not sure if they're going to make the Endura in the Wharncliffe. It would be interesting because that'd be a very long Wharncliffe blade. How long is this one? Should be under 3 inches because that's typical Delica. Yeah, so you got about 2.5 inches of cutting surface there. Now, of course, the way they do with the Spydercos, it's you don't have any choil, so it might be a little bit harder to get all the way back to the edge if you're resharpening. Yeah, spider hole, nothing new if you're used to Spydercos. Very ambidextrous knife. That's one thing that's really nice about some of the Spydercos is you can swap the clip tip up or tip down left or right on these Delicas, and also because of the nature of the lock back, there's no liner there or frame there, so on both right and left you have the same access to the Spyderco hole for deployment. So there's no difference in what hand you use to deploy this knife. So yeah, unique. Now when you look at this closed, because of the nature of the Wharncliffe, you get a little bit more of a hump here coming up. So like all Spyderco knives, they're a little bit wide in the pocket when you're carrying them because you have that spider hole. So if you didn't have that spider hole, this would probably, the belly wouldn't be as, or the curve here wouldn't be as high. But that's part of what you sacrifice when you got a Spyderco. Now this is coming out of Seki City, Japan, with Spyderco's VG10 steel, which is typical for Delicas, at least normal Delicas, not the sprint and run. So Seki City, Japan, they're still producing the knives out of there. These are solid. There's no play in this. These lockbacks from Spyderco to Delicas, they're very strong. They shouldn't really give you any problem. And other liners. Yeah, there's a little bit of little small stainless steel liners there in the under the FRN to help with strength. This is a good working EDC knife. Like most Delicas, they're kind of not quite a free dropper when you disengage that lock, but they do drop down a little bit. Neat offering. So how does the weight compare? Because that's kind of interesting, because when you pick this up it does almost feel a little bit heavier because I think there's more blade stock there, or overall just amount of material with that blade. Let's take a look. That zero in. 2.29 ounces for typical Delica 4. 2.36. So it's a little bit heavier, right? Yeah, 2.29. 2.39 now. Why did yeah, 2.39. 2.29, so 0.1 of an ounce is heavier. Not much, but yeah, it is heavier, and that is probably definitely due to the fact that that has more material there with the blade. But I think this is going to be a good seller for Spyderco because it already has been. It'll be interesting if they do some sprint runs in different steels, different handle colors. I'm sure they will, considering how well this has been selling. I think overall this has been received pretty well. Now it hasn't been, now it's definitely not as functional, I guess in some sense, as the typical Delica with the more drop point style blade. But I like it. I mean, I really like Wharncliffe's in the traditional sense, and a lot of my traditionals. I'm not sure if I would like this in Endura, the larger thing. I think that this is a good size, but I think that with the drop point, with the Endura, with the standard Endura is good. I don't think you really need a giant Wharncliffe. I think this is just about the right size. Be cool if they do the Zome scales like they did with the Endura and the Delica recently. I think they're going to come out with some more colors, because if you look at SHOT Show videos, they actually had at a Spyderco booth, Eric Lesser had a bunch of FRN that they were experimenting with different colors in Zome. So hopefully they do come out with more versions, because those are really neat. I actually have a Zome Endura. I'd probably do a video on that too. But yeah, hopefully they come out with more stuff with the Delica with the Wharncliffe, because this is really neat. So I'm not sure where you're going to be able to find this right now. I'm sure they're going to keep putting it back in stock as time goes on, and eventually it will be easier to find once everybody who wants it gets it, and then they'll have probably some more in stock. But yeah, it's really comparable to a Delica, and in price they're both about $68, give or take where you look for them. But yeah, the price really didn't increase, so they are very similar in weight and in price, just a little bit different in function. So yeah, feel free to leave any comments down below, and like and subscribe if you want to see more videos. And as always, thanks for watching.